intermediary. So when someone says, well, we could return to a gold-backed standard, I say, well, why won't it be co-opted again? Right? Like what's happening right now with a bank run on all of these institutions, with a bank run on FTX, with a bank run on Celsius, with a bank run on BlockFi, and all of these institutions collapsing, is an utter evisceration, vaporization of all of this paper Bitcoin. There's a reason that I can audit this entire system.
But there's also a reason, and I don't want this to become I don't want to have a gold versus Bitcoin debate with you, but there's also, if you're going to say gold has failed, I think you have to look at it from a preservation of wealth standpoint, right?
Yeah.
And also bring up the fact, well, if gold has failed, why have central banks purchased 400 tons of it just in the third quarter, records we haven't seen since the 80s if gold is failing? So obviously central banks, governments are clued in on something here.
Yeah, of course. No, I say gold has failed, not in the sense that gold has failed to preserve your purchasing power. It has done a tremendous job of that. 1 ounce of gold is a fine man's suit, and that way for the last 100 years or longer, yes. Right? So it hasn't failed in that sense, and I think that's one of the things where when someone says, what happens if the U.S. bans Bitcoin? Well, I'll say there will be people around the planet that will accept this regardless of government mandate. But the reason that gold, when I say failed, I say failed as a medium of exchange, no one is transacting in gold IOUs anymore. Why? The world was on a gold standard, and it wasn't on a gold standard due to any government mandate. And now we are in a world where 7 billion people use free flow fiat currencies. So why is that a thing? Even though central banks are accumulating gold, the U.S. has gold in Fort Knox, et cetera. Well, it's because there's that trust inherent in the system where you need to trust a centralized third party to not fractionally reserve your gold. And that trust is obviously the history of money and economics and human incentives says that trust will be broken. And it's the same reason why FTX said their customers had 70,000 Bitcoin and they had 0, right? So the ethos of Bitcoin is don't trust, verify. I don't hold any Bitcoin on exchanges and never do. Why? Because I buy Bitcoin, I send it to my own wallet, and I audit all 21 million Bitcoin every 10 minutes. And I don't need to trust anyone to do that, right? It's trivial. So the future where Bitcoin is a $10 trillion, $100 trillion, that sounds ridiculous, right? A $10 trillion monetary asset. Well, the reality is you have a globally distributed network where you can audit the entire supply in very trivial fashion from my smartphone, right? And you can't do that with gold. You need trust. So in a digital world, right? I'm 21 years old. I'm very young, and so maybe I have a lot to learn. That's a fair statement. But when I think about where the world's going in my lifetime, I don't think we're going to go to a world where I'm saving in a gold-backed ETF that JP Morgan has in their vault. I actually prefer a world where I have Bitcoin in a cold storage that I can audit, and I can access in 5 minutes if I need to, and it's mine, and it's mathematically mine, and I have all of my money in my head, right? That's the future I see.
Dylan, it's clear that your faith has not been shaken despite all the drama, and I'm sure that's going to put a lot of folks probably listening at ease. So I appreciate your thoughts, Dylan LeClaire of Bitcoin Magazine.